Hey everybody, welcome to the Patty G Show. I'm your host, Patty G. We are here with Dr. Warner of the Healing Soul. We're going to talk shoes. We're going to talk feet health. We're going to talk walking and all things that she is about. But before we get to that, I want to give a big, wonderful shout out and thank you to the amazing folks that bring you this show each and every week. We're proud to have some amazing partners here in the community. And we've got Building 5, Mimosa Handcrafted Jewelry, Falaya Real Estate, Lakeman's Health Center, Horizon Financial Group, Gage, Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge, and you know our outfit of the day is always brought to you by McLavy Limited. Without further ado, Dr. Warner, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Patty. Do you go by Patty?
Patty's fine.
Mr. G?
Yep, that's
Patty.
it, Mr. G.
Okay.
So how are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on. You've got quite a lot of products in front of us that we'll get to in a little bit. But before we get to the tangibles, tell us the intangibles. Who is Dr. Warner? Who are you and what the heck is it that you do?
Oh, Lord. So I am an orthopedic surgeon in town, and I'm one of the very few solo practice doctors left in the United States of America. It's something like, I don't know, under 5%.
So solo,
like small
what
practice.
Does solo practice mean?
Like not employed by a hospital, not employed by a large group, not academic, although I do teach part-time for LSU, I'm not employed by them. So there's very few of us that try to run an independent shop anymore. One of the reasons I do it is because, and you'll see as we talk about the products and stuff later, I'm very interested in more of sort of a holistic approach to people and whole body health and trying to get people better from inside out. And I just found in those big corporate bureaucratic environments, you can't really do that. Like you can't spend the time talking about the Mediterranean diet, or you can't show someone a workout protocol, things like that. It's just too factory-like, if you will. So my practice is off of Airline Highway near Klein-Peter Dairy here in Baton Rouge. And then I teach part-time for the Department of Orthopedics for LSU. So I go to New Orleans every week, believe it or not.
Holy smokes.
To UMC. And I actually trained at Charity with Tulane. I'm a Tulane residency grad at the old Charity, and now I'm at the new Charity.
So y'all are, as a Tulane grad, you're really happy with the football season this year.
Sadly, I'm not the world's biggest football fan, so I probably have no idea what you're talking about. I went to Delaware for college, so that would be the Fighting Blue Hens, and our football stadium is probably smaller than most middle school stadiums here, I would venture a guess.
So how do you end up in Delaware? Are you a Louisiana resident, born and raised here?
No. I am an Army brat. Gotcha. So I grew up all over. We moved every 18 months or so growing up. So no real roots. However, my parents' families are from the Delaware region. Okay. So we would always visit the Delaware beaches every summer to see the cousins and whatnot. So technically I'm from Delaware. That's where my father retired. But really I'm sort of from nowhere.
How'd you end up here?
Because the way it works, after you go to college, then you go to medical school, then you select, do you want to be a dermatologist? Do you want to be a radiologist? Do you want to be an orthopedic surgeon? Then you apply to various training programs. You do your interviews, and then you enter what's called the match, and it's a legal agreement. So you enter the match, and you select your top, let's say, 10 programs, and the programs that have interviewed candidates select their top 10 candidates, goes into a computer, and there's a match made, and you go where you matched. And the only school below the Mason-Dixon line that I applied to was Tulane, and that's where I matched.
So you don't have the answers if you don't want to. Where was Tulane in your top 10 rankings? Oh
God, that's such a great, I don't even remember. I think it was in the top 3. I mean, I did well. Okay. I did well in my match, and you know what? It was life-changing. I loved New Orleans. I still love it, although it's
a little different than when you first got there.
Different at the moment, even as of 3 years ago. I mean, honestly, it was awesome. And I'm hoping it'll come back. But anyway, I just wanted to stay. But in the interim, after residency, I had to go do 4 years of my own in the military because I was in what's called the Health Professions Scholarship Program, which is one of the many, many ways that exists to help pay for school if you can't afford it yourself, which I couldn't. So I signed up and the Air Force paid. And so I had to go do 4 years of active duty in the Air Force.
How was that? Thank you for serving, by the way.
Well, thank you. It was interesting, I'll say. I was stationed actually in San Antonio at the teaching hospital, so I was faculty there as well, the foot and ankle faculty. But they deployed me twice. And then I also was able to do a 2-week mission trip to Nepal, which was actually pretty interesting.
Okay, tell us more about that.
The Nepal
trip, yeah.
Yeah, so we went for, I want to say 10 to 14 days. It was a group of about 4 of us. And we went and taught Nepalese surgeons advanced trauma life support techniques, like basic, kind of what do you do when an injured soldier shows up in the middle of nowhere with nothing around. And so that was interesting. We were in Kathmandu, and I tell you, when you travel around and you see these other places and you see how other people live, you realize how good we have it here. Even our worst off is doing better than probably 80% of the planet. It's pretty astounding. So, I mean, whole family stuck in a room smaller than this studio with a dirt floor. It's just crazy how people exist.
Yeah. And have existed.
We're very, very lucky.
A long time that way too.
That's right.
So you leave from there and you finish out your training in Texas?
No. Texas was where I was I was done training, done with residency. But at that point, you have to serve your time. So it was payback time.
Got it.
And that's where I did my active duty, my 4 years.
Okay. So then finish your active duty, and the first place you want to go back to is New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. I died. Well, yes, but at the time it was Ray Nagin was the mayor, and I don't want to get into the situation, but it just didn't seem like a solid bet at the time. But Baton Rouge did, and it was close enough, so I went with Baton Rouge.
So you landed here in
Never
Baton
looked
Rouge and decided you open your own practice. I mean,
no. First, I started
do we get to the practice.
Right. Well, it takes a while because first of all, you've got to. When you first come out of medical school and residency, you have to do what's called the boards. So you have to collect a certain number of cases, and then you go before, some older, I don't want to say peers, but that have been working for a while, and they sort of judge your cases, and you take a test. And at that point, you can become what's called board certified. Mm-hmm. So the first few years, most people, you either need to be in a group or hospital somewhere where you can get those initial cases and sort of collect them and be able to pass your board. So I joined one of the groups in town, and then after about 2 years with them, Women's Hospital made me an offer to come work there, which I did. And then I stayed there another couple years, and at that point, I wanted to go on my own. And I could at that point because, you have to kind of get confident in your skills and your ability to handle clinic and run things. Meanwhile, like we talked about briefly off camera, when I first got out of the military and came back to Baton Rouge, I immediately entered the LSU Executive MBA program because I knew I wanted to learn more about business.
Right.
Because I knew ultimately I wanted to work for myself. So I needed those skill sets.
So what? The Patty G Show is now proudly presented by Baton Rouge Regional Airport. Y'all, I fly exclusively Baton Rouge whenever I best can. And what they've got now since June of 23 is a nonstop flight from capital to capital, Baton Rouge Airport to Washington, D.C. You're able to make the round trip in one day. They've got the earliest flight, or even earlier than flying into New Orleans. You can fly to Baton Rouge to go from Baton Rouge to D.C., round trip one day. If you've got meetings in D.C., or you've got business gatherings, you definitely want to fly to Baton Rouge and go from capital to capital. They are a proud presenter. We are now brought to you by Baton Rouge Regional Airport. Thank you so very much for bringing them on as the latest sponsor of the Patty G. So what kind of gave you that thought process or that line of thinking where you knew you wanted to do your own thing?
I guess I just kind of know myself. When I was in the military, it's very bureaucratic. And a lot of hurry up and wait, I guess, is probably the best way to think about it.
I used to work in industrial plumbing. I know exactly what you're talking about. Hurry up and wait.
Yeah, and it's almost like socialized medicine in the military. So I knew I didn't want that environment. And then working, same thing with, I just knew I didn't like that bureaucratic lack of autonomy. Right. One of the reasons most people, at least previously, went into medicine is used to be, and now it's less so, but it was always one of the most autonomous occupations where you can, once you learn your craft, you kind of do what you want and take care of your patients the way you want to.
Right.
Well, it turns out over time that autonomy has become more and more eroded, and I just knew I wanted to work for myself. So I wanted to be able to get those skill sets. Plus, I have a bit of the entrepreneurial, I guess, spirit. And if you work for a big group or you work for a hospital, they own all of your thoughts, all of your intellectual property, right?
Yeah.
So if you really want to have, like what I do with my products and things, you almost can't work for somebody else.
Yeah, they kind of want to control what you're putting out there and
or
keep
own
their name on it. Yeah, they want to keep their name on it and give you just a little fraction of what's coming in the door.
That's right. So if you realize that, then you're almost obligated to work for yourself.
So then you decide to go and get your MBA at LSU.
That's right.
So, and that's where you came into connection with a past guest of ours,
right,
Natalie.
Right. And she is actually in charge of pretty much all of the marketing and handling of, I don't want to say side hustles, but my side hustles. Because my main work is obviously I still have a surgical practice.
Right.
And I love teaching when I go to LSU, and I love operating. I love taking care of my patients. But I also love the companies. But there's no way I could do it all myself, obviously. And Natalie's been integral. She's sort of like the CEO, CMO of everything.
So you go and you get your MBA and then you open the practice.
Right.
So walk us through opening a medical practice.
Oh, Lord.
I can't imagine you just walk out there, put up a building and say, come and let us treat your illnesses.
No, and it's so hyper-regulated. I mean, I remember the first building I moved into, there's this rule that you have to have a water fountain if you have a public clinic, right?
Okay.
Like people come in, so you have to have a water fountain. Well, personally, I don't like drinking out of public water fountains, and I don't want my patients to have to drink out of a public water fountain. So, so the workaround I found was I bought this really expensive, really awesome triple water filter machine that plugged into the wall, so my patients could just pull a lever and it would, dump out water that had gone through a charcoal filter and some nano filters and this and that. I actually found it when I was at Ralph's on the Park in New Orleans one day. It's like, this is the best water of my life. What is this water? It was like mind blowing.
So you're required to have a water delivery device that plugs in and is
it
refrigerated?
Has to be plugged into the line. It's just crazy. So that's just one of the regulations.
So it has. I know, but I'm just still fascinated by this. So it has to be plugged into your main water line.
Yeah.
Okay. So they're wanting to get the public water to the public through your clinic, I guess.
So, but I didn't want to ask my patients to do something I wouldn't do. So I went and bought this awesome water filter and put it in. That's just one example. But with medicine, you have to get credentialed with all of the insurance companies. You have to get privileges everywhere. You have to have your licenses up to date. There's just a million and one things you have to do. But once you get through all of that quagmire, it really is almost just hang your shingle.
Yeah.
And if you build it, they will come, you hope.
So, and you wanted to become an orthopedic surgeon.
Yeah, well, that you decide when you're in medical school before you go to residency.
Okay. Because
the residency is when you're trained in whatever your particular subspecialty is. So if you don't know, like your, let's say, third year of medical school, then you're kind of in trouble because you have to apply for the match and so on and so forth. So yeah, I knew back in medical school that's what I was going to do.
What made you go that route?
I think because I didn't know right away. It took me a couple of years to figure it out. I knew I wanted to be a surgeon because, there's a lot of jokes about surgeons versus internists and stuff, but I didn't want to just sort of stand around and talk about things. I'd like to do things.
Okay.
And fix things and make things better. And in surgery, you have that ability. You actually get in there and fix things. And then orthopedics is very, I guess, mechanical almost. And it all just makes sense, how the muscles work with the tendons and the bones. And it was kind of mathematical in a way. I don't know. I just really liked it. So that's the route I went.
This episode is proudly presented by Gage. Gage is a local company here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. For over 40 years, Gage has provided businesses with the very best telecommunications, IT, and standby power services available. Gage has a variety of services, including Gage Cloud Voice. It is the last phone system your business will ever need. You need to give your business the ability to be accessible anytime, anywhere, and with Gage's cloud-based phone system, you'll be able to accomplish just that. Not only do they have Gage Cloud Voice, they have fully managed IT services that are proactive network monitoring, 24/7, 365, help desk, business continuity. They are there for you. What you're also going to need is some cybersecurity. Gage is there to safeguard your business from potential cyber threats, even when you aren't aware they exist. Gage also is power and leaders in standby generators. They are the #1 Cummins dealer on the Gulf Coast and provide generators to homes and businesses of any size so you can keep life going. Gage, better connected, a proud sponsor of the Patty G Show.
Gotcha. And so then you just open your practice and we're operating. And then how do we get to tangible products that you're now selling?
Yeah. So the first one that I came up with was this is called the Healing Soul, which is, I know you wanted to talk about this. So what happened was I do foot and ankle surgery primarily. I mean, I treat everything because once you're an orthopedic surgeon, you know, carpal tunnel, neck pain, back pain, whatever, we treat all of it. But some people do what's called a fellowship, which is another year of extra training. And I did mine in foot and ankle.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm going to make a long story very, very short. One thing that people come in for a lot is heel pain or plantar fasciitis, which afflicts something like 10% of the population. It's very prevalent and very debilitating. And I would get people that had seen other physicians and been elsewhere. And one of their primary complaints to me was not only the heel pain, but that their doctor told them they could never wear flip-flops again. And of course, that was deeply upsetting to a lot of people. You know, anybody that likes the beach or anybody that lives in the deep South, you got to wear flip-flops periodically. So at some point, I thought to myself, what if I can make a flip-flop better and actually treat the problem rather than, you know, be the source of it? And there's a lot of debate whether or not shoe wear actually causes problems. We're not going to get into that.
I just saw something today about showing how like shoes over time push people's toes together and all that stuff.
There's a lot of controversy there. That's a whole nother podcast.
I was about to say, how long do we got, you know?
But anyway, so what I did was I incorporated a number of different treatment methodologies that we use. So for instance, some people, like let's say you went to the doctor and you said, my foot hurts. A lot of doctors will say, well, wear this boot for 6 weeks and come back. Well, the only reason the boot's doing anything is because it has what's called a rocker bottom sole, which when you heel strike, the shoe walks through for you. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, this has like a very low grade rocker bottom. So when you heel strike, the shoe rolls through and that takes a lot of stress off of the structure of the foot. So that's one feature. Then we have this proprietary kind of, it's not really an arch support, although it is an arch support. It's just so low profile that it doesn't jam up into the arch, but it still gives you support. We have this little thing here, which is really only about an 8-degree wedge, but it lifts your big toe big enough that you could stretch the fascia. And then it's got cushioning here. So I incorporated cushioning, offloading, stretching, different little features into one shoe that people can reuse over and over again. Because, you know, one other thing I've noticed in medicine is that whole factory mentality. So a lot of people count on patients coming in and like, let's say you said my knee hurt. I would have in my head, I probably should have said someone would have in my head, all of the steps I'm going to take to eventually get you better. But meanwhile, I'm also doing the math on what I'm going to make on that, right? So with heel pain, you buy a night splint, you buy $500 orthotics, you buy a boot, you get an injection, you have doctor visits, you have an MRI. All of this costs money and racks up a very large bill. And at the end of the day, this does just as good as any other treatment out there in terms of outcomes, if not better, because there's no side effects. And it's like $100, you know? Okay. So basically it's a way for patients to take care of themselves and let the body heal itself naturally.
Right.
So this was the spawn of sort of this natural medicine, I guess, philosophy. I wanted a way to empower patients to get better on their own. And this was it. And then from that, I started delving more and more into that world of reading about how does the body heal? What is the basic science of this? You know, why are we doing so terribly in medicine? why, if people are less active than they ever were, is there more and more wear and tear than there ever was, right? Like nothing makes sense in modern medicine if you start to really think about it too much. And so I started reading more about diet, about nutrition. Fun fact, in medical school, there's only about 13% of medical schools that even teach nutrition.
Okay.
Right? So we don't learn this stuff. And I don't know if you know this, but the way medical schools started way back in the day is Rockefeller got involved with the group that was Bayer, which is, a big German conglomerate. And they decided that they needed essentially a sales force for pharmaceuticals. So they crushed all other thoughts in medicine from because there was a lot of traditional medicine back in the day and a lot of indigenous ways and herbal medicine. They put a quash on all that and said, you have to go to medical school and this is what you're going to learn about. And it's all drug oriented. And if you think about it, that's really what we do, right? You go to the doctor, they write a prescription, you either get a drug or you get a study, a diagnostic study, right? Or a surgery.
Right. Yeah, you get your prescription and treat whatever you've got. Right.
And so, but there are other ways to handle the problems rather than that. And one of the primary ways is to eat better, pretty basic, but it's really hard to sort of impart that knowledge to people without a deeper understanding yourself. So I had to teach myself effectively all of this, the more natural ways to take care of orthopedic conditions, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, so where does one go to even begin understanding all of those ways if it's not taught on the front end?
Yeah. You just have to read the literature. I just kept looking up scientific studies and papers and bought textbooks. I've gone to naturopathic and natural medicine courses, things like that. It's really just, the beauty of school. When you go to school and you go to college and you go to a degree, you really are just learning how to learn.
Right.
So I know how to learn. If you told me go figure out how do you fix a refrigerator, give me enough time, I'll pull enough papers, I could probably get there. So I just read a ton, really.
And so going from your doctor entrepreneurial spirit to now you're making a product.
Right.
Walk us through how you start developing something like this.
Yeah, well, that was a lot of work. So first, you have to get a design. Well, I don't do computer-aided design. I don't have a clue how to do that. So I had to find someone to do that, off of my sketch. That's step one. Then we spent some time trying to find someone around here that could make it, but nobody is in the shoe industry. Nobody makes shoes, right?
Yeah, Louisiana and Baton Rouge is not specifically known for shoe manufacturing.
Well, it's not even Louisiana, it's the States. No one in the States has really made shoes for forever, if you think about it. It's all been in Asia. So, and when it was in Asia, first it started in Japan, then it went here, then it went there, and now most of it's done in China. We went with Vietnam. So our factory's in Vietnam. So we finally found this factory. Well,
how do you find a factory?
Yeah, a lot of, actually this will be interesting to you because this is another Louisiana-born business. Feel Goods, do you remember them? The flip-flops, that they're at Whole Foods now. We got in touch with the guy that owns that, or one of the owners, and we talked to him and he introduced us to the factory.
Okay.
So just through networking, I guess, and doing a lot of research. So we found the factory, we had the design, went back and forth with prototyping and whatnot. And then the other thing they don't ever tell you in business school or any school about products, especially if you're ordering something like this, is these factories want a minimum order.
MOQ.
Yeah. So the first minimum order is 3,000 pairs. I mean, that's just crazy. So we had to
test the sample,
Correct. That's exactly right. To test the market and even know if the shoe would come out the way we designed. And then on top of that, they're in Vietnam. We've never met them. And they want us to send all the money by a wire transfer. So what I did, we set up a line of credit and had an escrow, just because I didn't trust the process at first. But once we got through that first hurdle, it's fine after that. Since then, we've moved on. We found a different factory that's a little bit more capable and able to make things with better quality and less inconsistencies. But it's been a saga. I mean, product development in the shoe industry it's tedious. It's a lot of work.
Well, and especially with something that you're designing. I mean,
right.
So you've got here, so if you hold it up, let me see it. You've got here multiple layers to this shoe.
Right.
That you've had to figure out. Because when you send the mock-ups and the sketches, you got to have, what's this distance, this distance, this distance, what's the radius, what's the angle, and then this little piece that's right here as well.
Right.
And then, like you're saying, the curvature on the bottom of it, it's a lot more.
Well, and even getting the
than a
strap
typical
material
shoe.
correct.
Oh, and then what's the material? When you so let's talk about that. When you're sending your specs into the factory to as much detail as we can, because I know some of the stuff's patented. So when you're sending in those specs, how detailed and how involved is that process to get the first shoe off the line?
Oh, it's very detailed. But here's the problem: when you're dealing with a factory halfway across the world in a different time zone, it takes weeks between prototypes. So it's not a fast thing.
Because it's got to get shipped to you. You've got to wear it. You've got to test it out, which makes sense why a lot of people for the first order go and spend like a month in the country where the shoe's manufactured.
Well, obviously, which I couldn't do.
Which you've got to practice to run.
So that didn't happen. That would have been nice though. Although I will say that I'm not a fan of Vietnamese food that's not Vietnamese American food. As like anything in America, we've changed it all, so you get used to what you're used to.
Right.
But we did visit the factory once. We stayed for like a week. It was pretty cool. It was interesting. But I will tell you, the people there work 6 days a week, 10 to 12 hours a day, and I think they make $10 a day.
$10 a day?
Yes. And that's why we can afford shoes in this country. Because if they were made in this country, I'm pretty sure no one would be able to buy shoes.
Well, I mean, so $10 a day, and if they're working 10 hours a day, it's $1 or so an hour, right?
Yeah.
Roughly.
Right.
And here you've got $7.25 or $7.45, whatever the minimum wage is. So you have the 7x the price just for labor.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're talking from a shoe that would charge $100 here because it's made over there, and it's now a $750, $800 shoe.
Right. That's right. Anyway, I mean, I would love it to be made here if it was even remotely humanly possible, but it is not. But anyway, it was a process. So since then, we've had to develop different styles, different colors. In fact, this is our first closed toe. This took forever to get off the mark, to a point where we could actually have it and sell it. But all my patients and all of our customers, because we sell a lot of, the Healing Sole works. It's a great shoe and people love it. And we sell a ton around the country. But everybody wanted a closed toe for forever. But I could never not get it to look like a clown shoe because it's got to have all these medical features.
That's what I was about to say. Like, it's not, I would love to see some mock-ups of the original one to see what it looked like, because you have to tailor it to the clientele that don't want shoes that look like clown shoes.
That's right. Although, have you seen shoes lately? The fashion world? I think this is the time to introduce an orthopedic shoe.
Everything's big and bulky, and now it's like, let's get orthopedic.
Now is when we should do it. But yeah, so flip flops normally come in like 9 to 10 or 9 to 11 or like big sizes.
Yeah, they're multiple sizes.
Right. So mine came in half sizes. So I'd have 9, 9.5, 10. Because to your point, every single feature has to hit the foot at a certain part for it to work the way that I wanted it to work. So our inventory costs were even bigger.
You've got to carry a lot more inventory.
That's right.
You can't throw those up on a Walmart shelf,
right,
and have the 9 to 11 sizing on them.
Right. So that was another issue. But we've worked through all of these, and we just grow organically year after year, which has been great.
Thank you to Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge for making this show possible. Nick Pentis is a past guest. We love having him on. Listening to him talk about the culture they have over at Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge is really an incredible thing to hear. How they treat not only their employees, but every customer that walks through the door. You are more than just a number to them. They're going to give you that white glove concierge service every step of the way. They're going to make you feel like family and take what can be a stressful time in people's life, shopping for a car. They're going to make it so enjoyable and so pleasurable. You're going to want to go back there time and time again for every new vehicle. Thank you so very much for Mercedes-Benz of making this show possible.
So when you first made it and you got your design and your first order of 3,000 units, were they exactly as you wanted every single one of them?
Yes and no. I mean, there's obviously going to be some deviation, a certain percent deviation. But the really interesting thing was the first batch that we made, we didn't realize that we should probably put a rubber outsole on it. So it was all just the foam, the EVA foam. So they were very lightweight and nice, but they just weren't as durable as they should have been. So things like that. I mean, there was no phone we could pick up to like a consultant. Like, how do you make this shoe that's patented, that's never been made before? How do we do it the right way? Like, we just had to figure everything out.
You tell me there's no shoe consultants?
There are, but not for that. But yeah, there's a consultant for everything, right? But anyway, now the closed toe's out, so we're all very, very happy about this.
So, beginning with the flip-flops, where were you first selling these? How were you marketing these? What was getting the product to the market like?
Okay, so initially we thought we were going to try to do retail. We went to some trade shows. We'd go to like the Louisiana Marathon and stuff like that. But quickly learned, and doctor's offices, I thought maybe doctor's offices, but we quickly learned, it's a very high education product. Like, you have to teach people about it, how it's supposed to fit, how it's supposed to feel, how do you break it in, how often should you wear it. It's not like a shoe you could just throw up in a store and have somebody sell. It doesn't work. And then a lot of physicians don't want to sell other physicians' products. So that was a no-go too. Now, you mentioned Natalie before. She is a genius with online marketing and retail and e-commerce. So the vast majority are sold online around the country.
So, and how do you bridge that gap between online no salesperson and the education?
Because we do a ton of content production, kind of like what you're doing right now. We do webinars, we do videos, we write blogs, we give just content.
So when somebody goes to scroll down the Healing Souls website and they go to look at this flip-flop model, what are they going to be greeted with? What is that education process like on the front end?
Yeah, we describe the features and how it works, but then go into great detail about the break-in period. Because so one of the things, and this goes back to our talk earlier about shoes and like theories about shoes that have been proven incorrect. One of the things I learned in all of my research about body healing and basic science, things like that, is that the foot really likes a stiff surface. It does better in that environment than being on something soft and squishy. So to maintain your foot's core strength, to maintain your bone structure and a sort of your sense of place, your proprioception, a stiffer shoe is a better shoe, believe it or not. So this is, when people first put this on, they don't expect sort of the stiffness of it. But if you give it a proper break-in period, wear it a couple hours a day for a few weeks, it eventually flexes out a bit. But because it is not soft and squishy and like a closed-cell foam that compresses, it allows you to build foot strength and it allows the rocker to work to de-stress the foot. Whereas if this were just made of like, I don't know, what's that, the Skechers, the memory foam, and you stood on it, it was a rocker bottom, it would just go bloop, right?
Yeah, it would just fall
there
over.
Would be no rocker. So things like that we've learned we've had to educate people. So that's all available to them on videos or little pamphlets that come in the shoebox. Okay. Things like that.
And so your first closed toe shoe looks like an Uggs boot. Yes. So walk us through the design of this.
Well, the marketing team kind of worked on the upper, Natalie and the crew, as to what they thought would be popular. But the chassis, the bottom is still all this. So all the technology, the patented stuff is still in this. It's
still the same sole.
This top is just, fashionista stuff. I am not a fashionista, so I kind of stay out of that. It looks great to me. But, I'm more interested in making sure that this part.
You want the science to work.
Right. So every prototype, I would test myself and come back through and say, this rocker's not right. This doesn't work. This isn't proper. This needs to be fixed. And again, this is another 5-6 year process.
5 to 6 years to get the closed toe?
Part of that's COVID too.
Yeah.
COVID kind of shut everything down.
So you've got these products up, you've got them on a website, and obviously they just sell out instantly, right?
Nothing sells out instantly. Unless you're on the dark web.
So different show, right?
Right.
So you start selling these, and then all of a sudden now, what is the feedback? What is the education like with your patients in your practice?
Yeah. So interestingly, I did not want to sell them until I did a study.
Okay.
So that's what we did first. So I got I put a call out to my patients. I think this was years ago, but it was about 40 people. And I gave them a pair and had people with heel pain, and then had them test it for about a month and did a study. And it did work, and there were no issues, no side effects. And it was about an 80-85% success rate. And I think 90 or 94% said they would recommend it to friends and family. And at that point, because again, you get 3,000 shipped from Asia, you don't know, is this really what I wanted? Is this what was in my brain? So I tested it first. Once I got through that test period, then we put it on the market. And our reviews are pretty, it's done everything I wanted to do.
That's good.
It really does treat foot pain, and it's much more economical than your average doctor visit. And I feel like it's really helped a lot of people. So that's been very gratifying.
So in general, what are some symptoms that people could be experiencing that this would benefit?
So it was originally thought for heel pain. So where you're, the ball, not the ball of your foot, the ball of your heel, that fat pad, where people get what's called a stone bruise in layman's term. That was the original thing. So pain in this region. However, because of the rocker bottom and this offloading area here, it also really helps with things like Morton's neuroma, which is like nerve pain in the front of the foot, or what we call metatarsalgia, which is just a fancy word for foot pain. It really means ball of the foot pain. We can't just say that. So people that have pain like under the second toe or the third toe every step, arch instep pain, it ends up treating everything. But the original, in my head, my original concept was plantar fasciitis heel pain.
Okay. And so now people are able to wear this instead of the boot method where you just throw it on there.
Right.
So once you got these products under your belt, you got your testing in place, you decided to start just diving into the world of products. I mean, we have 2, 4, 6, we have 9 products in front of us. What is this stuff?
Okay. So what happened next was, we had this, we've learning how to run a business, how to sell products, et cetera, et cetera. Meanwhile, I'm still a surgeon.
Yeah, you still have a whole practice
operating.
to run.
Right. And then for all of my surgical patients, because I had now learned about nutrition and micronutrients and things like, zinc, vitamin C that kind of matter. I'd been telling my patients for years, look, you're going to be post-op, you're going to be healing a wound, you're going to be healing a bone. You need to go get calcium, you need to go get D3, you need to get zinc, you need to get magnesium, blah, 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 blah. And patients would roll in with like one of those white plastic bags from CVS or whatever with bottles. Like, Doc, did I get everything right? Is this right? And I'm like, well, this is ridiculous. So it's like, there's got to be a way I can just put this all into one post-op supplement, to help with healing from wounds and orthopedic surgery. So that was our first product, was that. So it had just the basics of D3, calcium, vitamin C, zinc, magnesium, and it worked great. So people started to, so then from that came all these other SKUs, if you will. So
imagine taxiing on a plane looking toward the end of the runway. It seems so far away, it's even hard to see it. And that's what the concept of retirement probably felt like when you were in your 20s, 30s, and 40s, way far in the distance, not visible or even a concern. But as you turn 50, something happens. Retirement suddenly seems like something real, something not too far away. In your 50s, you are rolling down the runway. Retirement is getting closer and closer, faster and faster, weeks and months zipping by. But are you even ready for a successful takeoff to retirement? Fear not, there's still runway left. But the time is now. Time to make progress and time to get a plan. The Runway Decade will help you get organized, get energized, and give you the direction you need to take off to your desired retirement. The Runway Decade, building a pre-retirement flight plan in your 50s.
Okay. So then the next one that I really fell in love with that really works great for people was tart cherry extract. So tart cherries are very strongly anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and they actually have been shown to really help with things like gout because they reduce the levels of uric acid in your blood so the crystals don't form. So tart cherry, and it's been studied in runners for muscle pain, things like that. So tart cherry extract was the next one I did. And that one it's just as good as taking an ibuprofen, but much safer for your system. No risk of gastric bleeding, no risk of heart attack, stuff like that. So, from there, we just specific products to target a specific need, all with the underlying philosophy of reducing inflammation and reducing oxidative stress in the body, which is I don't know if you know this, but the core fundamental problem of most of our what we call non-communicable diseases or so-called lifestyle diseases like diabetes, dementia, obesity, some cancers, all of these kind of diseases that you can't catch. It's not like, you can catch pneumonia, but you can't catch diabetes. Most of them we're starting to find out are a fundamental dysfunction of the mitochondria, which is sort of the engine of the cell. And that is from chronic low-grade inflammation and chronic oxidative stress from a crappy diet and from breathing terrible air and drinking terrible water and all the mental stress we're under all the time, no sleep, et cetera, et cetera. So as I learned that, I realized, well, why would this make people get better from diabetes and not have heart disease or a heart attack? Why can't it help them with their knee pain? So I do more and more and more research. It turns out I was right. If you get all of your micronutrient picture right, reduce your stress, reduce your inflammation, oxidative stress, lo and behold, you're suddenly feeling a lot better. You're more mobile, you're more flexible, and you don't have as much pain. So that's kind of what pushed that on. So I had learned, yes, in fact, you can help people help themselves, and the human body is pretty remarkable in its healing capacities.
Very much so.
And, it's sort of arrogant of us doctors to think that we're better than the human body at healing, because we're really not. But if I let you harness the power that's innate within you to get better, you will.
Yeah.
You just have to kind of teach people and then give them the tools.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's like for those everyday workouters to stay healthy and they pull a muscle, it's like we're just going to pop Advil or ibuprofen for the next, week and a half, 2 weeks and just tone down what we're doing. It's like, well, here's something that can potentially help you get through it all the way. Right,
in a much more natural and safer way. So that's where all this came from, which I don't know if you want to get into them.
Yeah, let's do it. Like I'm curious to see what each one of these are. So you've got 9 different one of these products. That one looks good.
Yeah, so this one was shortly after tart cherry extract. This is the Joint Health Multi.
Okay.
And this has turmeric, ginger, black pepper, and a substance called PEA, which the PEA is also in the arthritis gummy. This is one of our newer products, the arthritis gummy. So PEA is palmitoyl ethanolamide. And that's a substance I found in my reading. Turns out it is a first-line treatment in Europe for a variety of ailments. Palmitoyl ethanolamide is in the same family as anandamide and works the same way as CBD. It affects the endocannabinoid system.
Okay.
So PEA, you're making it right now. I'm making it right now. Everybody makes it on an ongoing basis, and its purpose is to reduce inflammation at nerve endings. So for pain, particularly neuropathic pain or really any pain, because all pain comes from a nerve, PEA is very powerful. So I put PEA in the Joint Health Multi, and we also have a single component. You can just take PEA because it's used in Europe as a first-tier treatment for some conditions, painful conditions. So here it's over the counter. Lucky us.
I was about to say, like, how do you've got all these different supplements. I'm assuming it's supplements is the word we have to use here.
Yes,
so
use the right word.
How do you go about even making this stuff? I mean, I know when you do your research, you figure out what combinations would work well.
Right.
But here in, the U.S. and our standards that we have to self-create, how do you go about getting something in a bottle?
Yeah, so these are made in the USA. I would not want a supplement not made in the USA. So we have a factory that we use, and I do all the research and sort of say I want this with this, and this is the dose, and this is how you take it, and this is what it's for, and this is how it works. And then we just get the APIs, which are called the active pharmaceutical ingredient. I almost said advanced. It's an active pharmaceutical. So every medicine that you take has active pharmaceutical ingredients, and then it has the non-actives. And, that stabilize it or keep it from going rancid on the shelf.
Right.
And then it just gets packaged in a little capsule and put in a bottle. And then the labels have to be all approved. They have to be just so. They have to have QR codes on them that go to the, what's actually in them on your website. And we get all of our stuff third-party tested. So we have that too. That's another piece of the puzzle. But once you get 1 or 2 down, it starts to become a bit easier. And then it's just a matter of making sure your APIs are from a known place that's not China.
Right.
Which is one thing I'm pretty adamant about, just because there's been so many quality issues from some of those countries. But the Joint Health Multi, turmeric, PEA, ginger, and black pepper really helps joint pain, come to find out. So I have a lot of patients that have knee pain, arthritis. They've been told they're bone on bone. They've been told you have to have a total knee replacement. They come see me. We do a biomechanical analysis, say, oh, your medial hamstring's too tight, your IT band's off, whatever. Things we can fix with physical therapy. But in conjunction, I'll put them on the Joint Health Multi in the morning and tart cherry at night. Give or take the arthritis gummy if they need a little bit of extra. And most people get a lot better and suddenly don't have any pain. It's pretty miraculous. And they don't have to be on non-steroidal anti-inflammatories because they're pretty high cardiac risk with those and a pretty high GI risk. And also, makes your kidneys and your livers work too hard. And it doesn't do anything else for your system. But all of these, turmeric's great for your heart, great for your gut. It's great for everything because it's basically upregulating all of the natural anti-inflammatory genes, like turns them on, and is turning off the inflammatory ones. So it reduces that fundamental source of all of our problems.
So solving the root cause of the issue.
Correct. And if you do that, the side effect of treating your orthopedic conditions with this kind of, a viewpoint, the side effect is you're generally much healthier.
Okay.
Thank you so very much to Building 5 for becoming the latest sponsor of the Patty G Show. We are going to be filming once a month at Building 5. We're going to post about it on our social so you can come and visit with us. Building 5 is an excellent food establishment if you're into sharing boards and really getting a creative menu. Misty and Brumby have done an excellent job of creating an environment that's warm, welcoming, and inviting for every single occasion. Go on over to Building 5 in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and tell them that the Patty G Show sent you.
Okay. So we've got, what else do we have here?
Okay. So the arthritis gummy we came out with recently, and we put boswellia, which is frankincense, and bromelain, which is a well-known anti-inflammatory found in pineapples. So that's PEA, bromelain, and boswellia. So this is just, for people that have persistent pain, they can take a few gummies here and there to supplement their relief. This one is awesome for pain, but also very highly regulated with the Delta 8 gummy. So we also have a CBD product, which is of course derived from the medical marijuana plant, but it's not medical marijuana. It's like another component of it. So Delta 8 is a type of a phytochemical out of the same plant, but THC, which is marijuana, is Delta 9 tetrahydrocannabidiol. This is Delta 8. So at this point, it's still allowed to be over the counter as long as you're, have certain gram weight per serving size, which we meet all regulations. But this thing has been amazing for neuropathic pain, like nerve-based pain. I do a fair number of recommendations to people for medical marijuana, and some of my primary patients that need medical marijuana have neuropathic pain, diabetic neuropathy, alcoholic neuropathy, chemotherapy neuropathy, whatever. Marijuana has been amazing for them, and it also dramatically helps a lot of people sleep because sleep loss is another of our root causes of problems. So Delta 8's just like, it's like the lesser cousin, I guess, the over-the-counter cousin, but it's equal. It's been really great for people with nerve-based pain.
So how has the recent law changes affected that side of the medical marijuana industry?
Yeah, so there are some, I'm going to say, egregious players out there in the market. I've seen them, mostly at gas stations that they sell this stuff. What it changed is you just have to have you can only have a certain amount of the dry weight be that substance. For us, it changed our serving size.
Okay.
That's it. Ours is third-party tested. It's all on the up and up. It was just a minor tweak for us. It was annoying, but
it's part of what you had to do.
Part of doing business. So there's that. Now, this is one of the best things you can take if you want to know what you should take yourself, is omega-3. So omega-3s, you hear about eating salmon, mackerel, and herring. Well, I don't know if you've ever tasted herring, but I find it quite unpleasant. And there's only so much salmon you can eat. Plus, nowadays, it's really hard to find wild-caught salmon. If you get farm-raised salmon, guess what they're feeding farm-raised fish? Corn. They throw them corn or rendered fish, which means other dead fish.
Right.
So farm-raised fish are effectively just as bad as eating a Big Mac nowadays.
Yeah,
you're not getting the omega-3s.
Right.
So I personally supplement. I don't worry about trying to eat seafood 2 or 3 nights a week because, first of all, it's very expensive. You can't find wild caught. you can't find something out of a non-polluted body of water. So this is actually, we source it from Scandinavia, and it's all third-party tested for heavy metals, pollution, things like that. But omega-3s are massively important. So every cell in your body, think of it like a water balloon with a 2-layer wall. And the 2-layer wall is a cell membrane. So all the receptors and the pores and everything that goes in and out of the cell goes through the membrane. Most of us in America, our membrane is filled with omega-6s, which is what you get out of red meat and corn. And, now in our country, everything is either corn or soy-based, right? All of the processed foods, everything. So we're just very full of omega-6s. Well, omega-6 turns out to be one of the sources of severe chronic inflammation, because the way your body fights, like let's say you got a cold or let's say you cut your hand or something, the way inflammation works, it'll pull out a building block out of the cell membrane and pass it through some enzymes and turn it into a prostaglandin or another type of highly inflammatory protein that'll go and kill the bad guy. Well, omega-6 preferentially goes down this very highly inflammatory pathway and then ends up damaging your own cells. Omega-3 does not. Omega-3s go down this very anti-inflammatory pathway and ends up helping the body remodel and repair. And that's one of the reasons people in Japan, for instance, are much healthier than us and live longer and are much more active later, because their relative percentage of omega-3 that their body is comprised of is somewhere around 10 to 12%, and we're at 2%.
Wow.
So one of the best things you can do for yourself, the best ways to reduce pain, the best ways to feel more flexible, and also to reduce inflammation in your brain, by the way. So it actually has been shown head to head to work as good as antidepressants and things like that, is to be on omega-3s.
And just taking the supplement.
And it's so simple. Yeah. And it's like nobody told you this. And nobody told me. We all have to figure it out ourselves.
So, and this is y'all's own branded
That's right.
products and y'all's own branded blend.
Well Theory. And we've been working on this for a few years. This is I just love this stuff. I mean, the natural medicine thing, it's amazing how powerful it is.
So what else do we have here to help with remedies?
Okay. So we have berberine. Have you heard of berberine?
No.
So berberine is made from a bark of a particular plant, but it's got actions that are very similar. In fact, in some studies have been shown to be exactly like metformin, which metformin is one of our frontline treatments for diabetes. So metformin helps to regulate blood glucose levels. And one of our issues in life nowadays is everybody's running around with way too high of a blood glucose level, and that just causes a whole host of problems. So berberine is a very natural way that's non-prescription, because to get metformin in this country, you have to have a prescription. Now, a lot of people in the anti-aging community are taking it because there's a big, strong school of thought out there that believes that metformin extends your life and reduces cancer risks and things like that. But most people can't get metformin. Berberine is an option, and it helps. If you take it before meals, it helps to keep your blood glucose at a smooth, kind of level point within a normal range where you don't have huge spikes. So this has been great for people for that purpose. And it also helps the mitochondria function better. And it's, pretty inexpensive.
Yeah. I mean, so when you're developing these things, this is a lot more in the medical industry than just you being an orthopedic surgeon. So like, how did you start kind of going down this, or maybe it's not, I mean,
no, you're right. But that's the problem.
Walk us down how you get to this point where you're making these supplements that go above and beyond the foot.
Well, that's the problem, right? So in modern medicine, particularly in America, everybody sort of has their little itty bitty silo and fiefdom, forgetting that, for instance, your hand might be attached to a human body, that there might be a system involved there, right? Everybody forgets that. As I learn more and more about nutrition, chronic inflammation, oxidative stress, and realize what it does to cartilage, what it does to bone, what it does to the brain, which changes how you feel pain, what it does to nerves. That's, to me, that there's nothing more orthopedic than what I do. But yeah, to somebody just looking at it, it can look a little askew, I suppose. But if you really want to help people heal themselves and get their bodies better, you have to have these fundamental building blocks, these micronutrients, or it's just going to go nowhere.
Yeah. I mean, now it's like as you walk through it and you explain, it's like, okay, everything makes sense, how it's all kind of connected. And so now you're at the point where it's like, you're having a conversation with a patient that's a lot deeper than, well, your ankle hurts, you know?
Correct. Right. And also, you know, ethically now, I know that I can get them better without surgery.
So how does that work?
So I feel obligated to do that. I know. I'm effectively putting myself out of business. No, I mean, some people still need surgery. I mean, people have deformities, people have injuries, et cetera, et cetera. But I can tell you that since I've started doing this and learning more about this model, and also I have a very, very good team of physical therapists that are with me in my building, and we work very closely together, we have been able to get a lot more people better without surgery.
That's
so it's been pretty awesome.
So have you been able to run an analysis on how many surgeries you were having to perform before all this versus now?
I know.
Is there any correlation?
Yeah, no, I think there is. My surgery schedule is definitely lighter than it ever used to be. But it's kind of a good thing. Like, I'm not upset about it. Actual numbers, I don't know. And now when I go to New Orleans, I still do a lot of surgery because that's, we're at the safety net hospital, level 1 trauma. So I get a lot of things like that.
Yeah. Dealing with more trauma than people walking in for routine pain.
Right. Like gunshot wounds and car accidents and things. I mean, all that's still going to happen.
Right.
There's still going to be need for surgery, but for what used to be called wear and tear, which is really just deterioration because of poor metabolism and poor mitochondria and the inflammation and the oxidative stress, all of that is so fixable without surgery now, my opinion.
So how has this impacted your level of involvement on the teaching side? Are they like, don't you work with university and kind of help teach a little bit?
I mean, I try. It's so busy there all the time. I try to teach the residents about these things, but they're just, those poor babies. They're just very overworked. I don't like to add to their burden.
Yeah, is it like a different style of teaching now instead of going with what has been and what now you're able to see? I feel at some point there's got to be this rollover of like, we really got to start pushing this or helping.
Yeah, well, what we do with the help of Natalie and her team is a lot of public free education. So I do a lot of webinars. I do videos. I'll just talk about tart cherry for 2 minutes, or I'll talk about turmeric or whatever. We do a lot of writing. I edit every blog that comes out of the group just to make sure it's accurate and correct. So really, it's just public teaching, I guess. And it's all free. It's all on all of our websites. Anybody can go watch any, talked about oxidative phosphorylation to fibromyalgia. So that's how.
Makes sense. And so how are you getting these products? Where are you selling them at?
Online.
Okay. So
thewelltheory.com. I sell it out of my clinic, of course, but really online. And all over, again, most of our customers are outside of the boot, if you will.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We sell a ton, but not so much in Louisiana. And I don't know if that's because, unfortunately, Louisiana and Mississippi are always in a race as to which state is the unhealthiest, or which state has the most obesity. Or the most diabetes, and it's kind of really tragic. But I spend a lot of my time with my patients. I've had conversations like just trying to get them to understand that bunny bread is not good for them.
Right.
It's very basic for a lot of people, the teaching that goes on. And then I have some patients that, bring me bottles of supplements from when they were traveling in Europe. They want to know if I think it's appropriate and what So there's all different levels, but by and large, particularly at the teaching hospital in New Orleans, because it's a lot of inner city and now a lot of immigrants are being taken care of there. There's just a lack of fundamental knowledge that maybe Cheetos for breakfast is not a good idea, Yeah,
it's like you got to get back to the education level of what makes a good diet.
Right. But once you do that, you remember your mom telling you, or Sesame Street or whatever, you are what you eat. It really is true. So as people start to learn, it's like a snowball. You just make one change, you're going to make another change, you're going to make another change. And over time, you're going to be healthy.
Yeah.
And you're going to feel good.
And that's the other hard sell is you can't take it one time and be healthy the next day. It's like it's a total change of your lifestyle, the way you consume
food,
the way you look at it. These 45-day, 90-day diet or fad things. It only helps in the interim, but it's really reevaluating what you look at as to be consumed.
That's 100% true. And I see that nowadays with all of the the incretin mimickers, the GLP-1s, the Ozempics and the Mounjaros and the semaglutides. So we have a lot of patients on those meds, and we've prescribed them for people, and they really dramatically help people lose weight, and they make a lot of changes in people's lives. But most people never get that mental change. So the minute they go off the meds, it all reverts back because they never made that switch in their head that I don't need that much, or, I don't have to snack all day, or I can get away with healthy food and I'll be okay. But you're right. It's people have to internalize it. And that's the trick. That's the hard part.
Yeah. That's the challenge, is how do you get off of what you've been doing for so long?
Or how you were raised.
It's the way you were raised. It's it's a generation situation sometimes where it's like, this is, oh, I used to eat this when I was a kid, and that's kind of what I started feeding my kids, so on and so forth, where it's, how do we change the habits that we've created and formed over the years?
Yeah. So my tack is to get people to understand that it's not like this nebulous esoteric thing like, oh, if you do this, your risk of a heart attack when you're 80 is reduced by 30%. To a 30-year-old, that's meaningless. Right? Or 50-year-old even.
It's two and a half more lives.
So many of the goals of the longevity world and the naturopathic world, if you will, it's not immediate enough. It's too far out there. Like, it's not a good goal. What I've learned is if you start to get healthy, if you start getting good sleep, you get a good routine, you start eating healthy, you do things like time-restricted eating, stuff like that, all of a sudden, your pain just goes away and you can do more. You function at a higher level. You're able to play with the grandkids. You're doing better at work. You're not as exhausted at night. It's easy to get up in the morning, things like that. So that's my goal for people. And so far we've been successful when they listen to me.
That's the other challenging part. Is like, you can talk all day in the office, but if they go home and do something totally different, it's like, where it is.
Right. But the other thing is, I don't want people to beat themselves up, because the number one killer in our country is loneliness. The number two killer is stress, mental stress. So there's no point in being super stressed about all this. Do what you can when you can. And I really have seen it, and I've lived it in my own life. As you make changes, you just want to make the next change. Mm-hmm. It's not even like, you're not even making yourself do it. You're like, oh, I cut out bunny bread. I'm going to cut out processed meat this month. You just start to want to get better.
Yeah,
and get healthier.
It's a gradual step, one day at a time.
Yeah, so it's been great. I mean, starting with the Healing Soul and then this, we've been able to get a lot of people a lot better in a much more natural way, which is very low risk, and at the end of the day, probably less costly. The price tag for a family of a moderate heart attack is like $750,000 lifetime cost. So investing in your health now and like just eating grass-fed organic meat once a week instead of crappy grade D beef 3 times a week, like just making simple switches like that, you're ultimately going to save wealth for your family. It's an investment. You got to think of your health as an investment.
Yeah.
So every day I just try to impart these messages. That's all you can do.
Absolutely. And you've got to do it little by little. And that's how, what is it? How you eat an elephant, a bite at a time?
That's right.
So Dr. Show is proudly brought to you by Mimosa Handcrafted Jewelry. Mimosa Handcrafted Jewelry is a local business right here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. They create handcrafted jewelry for everyday use, that special occasion, whatever it may be. Gentlemen, they've got amazing jewelry both for male and female. Everyone is their audience. After years of experimenting with everything from ceramic jewelry, glass beads, and enamel, they've settled in on the ancient art of lost wax casting is their main form of creating their work. They cast everything in bronze, sterling silver, and 14 karat gold. Every step of the way is done here right in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Proud sponsors of the Patty G Show. Mimosa Handcrafted Jewelers. Get out there and tell them that Patty G sent you, and they're going to take great care of you on your next order. So, Dr. Warner, before we get you out of here, we do have a set list of questions we like to ask every guest.
Sure.
The first one is, what is something you did as a kid you wish you could still do today?
That's a good question because I am doing it. So as a kid, I played the piano and then didn't for forever. And now, because I'm trying to help my little girl and little boy practice,
Right.
I've started relearning piano.
That's fun.
Yeah, it's a good diversion, I guess. Like it's de-stressing.
Yeah. See, that's
So
what
I wish I had never given it up, but you know how when you're a kid, you fight everything.
well, and that's I used to play the piano. I mean, I can still play the piano, but it's like I used to take lessons and do all that as a kid, and did alto saxophone, tenor saxophone.
goodness.
So like I've kept my saxophone at my house. My wife's like, "Can
You're
we
like
get rid of
Yanni.
this?" I'm like, "No, I just want to keep the
Kenny G.
saxophone." Kenny G, that's it.
Kenny G.
I'm like, I want to keep it just in case one of our kids ever wants to
Right.
play. We've got it. You know, I can
Right.
pick it back up.
Well, it's a great way for kids to get better at math, actually, because of the pattern recognition and the symmetry of all of it. So if a kid can learn music, they generally are going to do better in the STEM fields, I think.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Because I learned how to read music at a very young age, and just would always read music.
Yeah,
and-
the harmony,
pick it
everything.
up.
It's all very mathematical if you start to really think about music.
Oh, yeah. So you've done a lot over the course of your career thus far, from products to surgeon to just everything.
Yeah.
What are 3 lessons you've learned along the way?
Oh, Lord. That's 3 questions. What I've learned is sleep is probably the most important thing you can do for yourself. When I was a resident in a medical school in college, we didn't sleep much.
Yeah.
Back when I was a resident, sometimes worked 24 hours, 36 hours in a row, more than a few times a month. And that is really just devastating to every aspect of being human. So I would say sleeping more. Oh, what else have I learned? Goodness. I think playing the long game. You can't let minor setbacks. I mean, I've had so many setbacks in these projects and setbacks in my own practice thing. You just have to keep the long game, like look ahead 5, 10, 20 years and just keep plugging. You just got to keep working.
Oh, yeah.
You can't stop. You can't give up. And then what else? I guess I just finally learned how to eat right. I mean, believe me, I used to eat Lucky Charms like a crazy person. And I've made a lot of changes in my life as I started to learn what I didn't know. So just basic stuff that your mom tried to teach you that we all ignored and forgot. You are what you eat, go to bed early, work hard, and then you'll have time to play later, which is so true. So I don't know if I've learned it or rather I've accepted these things.
You've recognized the truth
Yes.
behind them.
The wisdom, that's probably really more to the point.
So what is something you love about Baton Rouge?
I love about Baton. So if you had asked me when I was 15, 20, even 30, well, maybe 30, I was in New Orleans. If you had told me that you're going to end up living your life in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, I would have looked at you like you were crazy. But I have learned to love the South. And one thing I've learned about the South that is different from the area where I'm from, which is more mid-Atlantic or really anywhere in the country, is it's all about family and friends. And people have very deep roots here and will just do anything for the family. And I just love that. And turns out that is the key to a long, happy life. So there's a study out of Harvard that's still ongoing. They've been following people for 85 years now. They followed a group of Harvard students and a group of inner city people, matched them, followed them this long. And the number one thing that keeps people alive and highly functioning is having very good friends and a good close family.
Love that.
So, right. So all of this that I do is lagniappe to that, which is one of the things I've learned about Louisiana, which is why I'm still here.
Yeah, it's the family connection and the unity.
Yeah,
that
just
is there.
the sense of community.
Oh, yeah. So for the final question, what can I do to help you?
Go to sleep early? No, I don't know. Keep doing what you're doing. I think what you're doing is great. It's great for the community. It's good to get the word out about different companies. I mean, just walking through this building and seeing all the different smaller companies and startups is pretty awesome. For us, Natalie and I in our group of our staff, I guess, it's interesting because we've got 2 really viable companies that do really well, but, trying to find funding or like let's say we wanted to expand because we're in Louisiana and there's not that sense of venture capitalism or capital markets really even at all. It's going to be a problem when we get to that point. We're going to have to actually leave the state probably to go seek funding. Do you know what I mean? So what you're doing is great for the younger people coming up in the startup community, just to get the word out that, there actually is a viable business community here that is worthy of people's attention,
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, I think just keep doing what you're doing.
So what's the easiest way for people to get a hold of you? We're going to link the websites and all that in the show notes.
Yeah, well, my practice is easy. It's warnerorthopedics.com. And I don't spell it with the A because I find that very pretentious. So it's just the orthopedics with the E. So I don't know if you know that some people spell it, the pedics part, Paedics, which is...
I didn't know there was a difference.
Oh, yeah. You'll notice now. I do it the very dumbed down American way with just an E. Gotcha. WarnerOrthopedics.com. And then the products are thewelltheory.com and then thehealingsoul.com.
Okay.
So all pretty basic.
Yeah, well, we're going to link them all up and in the show notes and let everybody kind of see what the products are about and hopefully do some education on there. Great. And so thank you, Doctor, for coming in.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate your time, and we'll see you on the next one,
All right.
And thank you, everybody else, for tuning or watching in. Be sure to check out everything that Dr. Warner's got going on. Everything's going to be linked in the show notes. Let them know that Patty G sent you. And, yeah, we'll be back next week, y'all. Thank you.
Welcome to the brand new Falia mobile app. We took all the same tech that's helped hundreds of people sell their homes themselves and packed it into an easy-to-use app for your phone. When you download the Falia mobile app on either the Apple or Android App Store, you'll immediately be able to see the power of this game-changing tool. From the seller's dashboard, you can navigate to all the information that you need. We intentionally separated everything into key groups, such as tasks to be completed, buyer leads for your listing, and contact information for everyone involved through closing. When you get an offer on your property, you can simply review and respond all within the app. No matter where you are in the world, you'll be able to monitor everything that's going on with your property from listed to sold. It's truly the power of Falia in the palm of your hand. Download the app and see for yourself. Falia, it's real estate reimagined.
Thank you to our wonderful sponsor, Lake Men's Health Center with Our Lady of the Lake Physicians Group. Guys, I know it's tough to get out and go to the doctor. I know it's challenging to find time in our busy days, but I promise you, signing up to be a part of this group with Dr. Curtis Chastain and Dr. Tyler Boudreau, you won't regret it for several reasons, but most of those being the fact of the time it saves, where you're able to get in on the same day, get that appointment done, and spend that time you need to talk with them about what your health goals and concerns are, as well as ensuring that the financial investments you have, you will be able to live out and see those come to fruition. So if you're an investing guy, you know all about and planning for the future and investing in the future. There's no other more important thing to invest in than your health. Make sure you go check them out, Our Lady of the Lake Physicians Group Men's Health Center, and tell them Patty G sent you. McLavy's Limited, a proud sponsor of the Patty G Show, has been serving the Baton Rouge area proudly for 40-plus years. Gentlemen and ladies, if you're shopping for your man, there is no other place in the Baton Rouge area to get your clothing, whether it's game day needs, everyday needs, business attire, formal attire, whatever you want. Go over there, see Frank and Ashley. It's a father-daughter duo. They do incredible things in their store. They will outfit you from as simply a shirt that you